O Blessed One, Shakyamuni Buddha. Precious treasury of compassion. O Blessed One, Shakyamuni Buddha.
Testing, 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 1, 2, 3.
Good morning everyone, welcome. Thank you for coming on this bright Saturday morning when you could be doing other things, like walking in the park or something like that. So, dealing with loss and disappointment. So, this is our natural condition actually. So this class, this half-day course, is essentially a meditation on what it's like to be in samsara. Samsara. If you haven't heard this word before, I would explain it a little bit when we begin. But essentially, it's our underlying condition. Anyone not experienced any loss and disappointment? Yeah. So it's from very simple things to very major things in our life. So don't look so grim. The beauty of thinking about this and coming to this realization is that we can turn our mind to something that is more reliable. Instead of searching for peace and happiness externally, we turn our mind to look internally and create the causes of our own peace and happiness from our own mind. And in the process, we need some guidance on this. So we just turn our mind gradually to someone who lived 2,500 years ago, who discovered this process of mental training himself, and then passed it on to whoever would want to listen. And so these teachings have come down to us in the present day, the same teachings that he gave 2,500 years ago. The awakened one, the Buddha. The word Buddha simply means the awakened one. So what he's doing is encouraging, what he did then and is doing now still, is encouraging other people to seek awakening. And here's how you do it. So that's what we're going to talk about this morning in the context of dealing with loss and disappointment. Okay, so we begin with liberating prayer, which you'll find on a red card somewhere. And then we'll do a brief breathing meditation.
O Blessed One, Shakyamuni Buddha, precious treasury of compassion, bestower of supreme inner peace, you who love all beings without exception, are the source of happiness and goodness, and you guide us to the liberating path. Your body is a wish-fulfilling jewel. Your speech is supreme purifying nectar, and your mind is refuge for all living beings. With folded hands I turn to you, supreme unchanging friend. I request from the depths of my heart eyes nourish me with your goodness, that I in turn may nourish all beings with an unceasing banquet of delight through your compassionate intention, your blessings and virtuous deeds, and my strong wish to rely upon you. May all suffering quickly cease, and all happiness and joy be fulfilled, and may holy Dhamma flourish forevermore.
And so we can meditate. In meditation, it's good to have a good posture, which means having a straight back, having a relaxed body. Just allow your shoulders to relax downwards. And you can, if you wish, you can place the back of your right hand in the palm of your left and raise the thumbs so the tips of your thumbs touch gently together. And then relax your hands into your lap. You can gently close your eyes and gently close your mouth. And so you breathe naturally through the nostrils. For a few moments, just watch the rhythm of your own breathing. Don't try to slow it down or speed it up. Just observe your own natural rhythm. And as you do this, let go. Let go of all concerns about what's happening in the outside world. Just feel as when you're in here, the outside world can take care of itself. And let go of anything else that's happening inside this room. And bring your whole mind just to focus on your breath. Imagine you're seeing your breath as you breathe in and breathe out. Bringing your whole attention onto your breath. And you may notice a feeling at the tip of your nose. As you breathe in, it may feel slightly cool. And as you breathe out, slightly warm. But the difference is very slight, barely noticeable. And this is going on all the time. So try to find that subtle difference in feeling at the tip of your nose. And when you find it, just allow your whole mind to to that feeling. So the feeling is the only thing that's appearing to your mind. If you can keep your mind on that feeling without distraction, your mind will become still, and from that stillness will come a deep feeling of happiness and contentment. A deep feeling of peace and contentment. So try to notice any feelings of peace and contentment that you have, because they arise just naturally as your mind becomes free of distractions. We're beginning to experience the basic nature of our own mind, the nature of peace and contentment, like a clear sky with no clouds. So when you arise in a few moments from meditation, try to remember any feelings of peace and contentment that you had. You can bring them back again anytime. So now you can begin to relax your concentration, and when you're ready you can arise from meditation, bringing your mind back to the room, becoming aware of your surroundings. So I want to talk briefly about samsara, the word samsara. It's a Sanskrit word that refers to the conditions that we experience for ourselves, and not just in one lifetime, but many lifetimes, countless lifetimes, since beginningless time, and if we don't do anything about it, we go on to endless time experiencing the sufferings of samsara. Samsara essentially means uncontrolled rebirth into a state of suffering. Uncontrolled rebirth into a state of suffering. So when you were born into this life, for example, you experience the sufferings of birth. If you probably don't remember that, but you can imagine what it was like being born. You see the experience of other people being born, and then you experience the sufferings of growing, of aging, as becoming a toddler. Do you know that any toddlers who are permanently happy and peaceful? And then an adult, a teenager, a young adult, a middle-aged adult, an older adult, and then we die. And then we take rebirth again. So that in every life that we take, we experience the sufferings of samsara. And also think about who you are. Ask yourself, what lies behind my name? Because this is important too. But when we ask ourselves that question, what lies behind my name? If you deconstruct what is here or what is there, you come to realize there's just a mind and a body and a mind. Yeah. So, the important thing is the nature of our mind. Because it's with our mind that we experience everything. So if we're experiencing suffering, it's with our mind. Particularly the part of the mind that's called feeling. We can have pleasant feelings, of course. We can have neutral feelings, and we can have unpleasant feelings. And the thing is, we can ask ourselves, well, what determines whether I have pleasant feelings or unpleasant feelings? And the answer to that question is our own actions. Our own actions. Because not just in this lifetime, but in many previous lifetimes. So in many previous lifetimes, in every life we have, we engage in what's called virtuous actions. Virtue simply means that which is the cause of happiness. And its opposite, non-virtue, is that which is the cause of suffering. So in this life we've engaged in many virtuous actions that are the cause of happiness, but we've also engaged in many negative actions that are the cause of unhappiness. You engaged in any non-virtuous actions this life? You cause hurt or harm to anyone else? Perhaps not on a daily basis, but maybe, I don't know. You don't have to tell me. I know. So, and you think about what we've been doing in our past lives as well, and it's the same. We've engaged in all these different types of actions, neutral actions, virtuous actions, non-virtuous actions. And every action that we engage in has an effect. And the effect is our experiences. So there's this definite relationship between our actions and our experiences. Yes? Okay. So, and this applies to our experience of loss and disappointment. So we take rebirth into a state of samsara. And naturally, we experience these feelings, or this relationship with what appears in our life as a sense of loss and a sense of disappointment. Yeah. One more thing to understand. There's nothing coming from the side of the what we see as the object. Everything is coming from our own mind. So when we look at something, or when we experience something, when we have a feeling in relation to what's appearing in our mind, in our life, we normally think that it's the object, the nature of the object, or the nature of the person that's causing the feeling. This is how we normally think, right? So we have a pleasant person in our life, and we think we have pleasant feelings. They're pleasant because we have these feelings, and we recognize them as having pleasant qualities. And then there's other people that we recognize as having unpleasant qualities. And there's situations that we find ourselves in that we think are pleasant, and then there's other situations that we find are unpleasant. But if we check with wisdom, and we ask ourselves, well, what is the underlying, what's the true nature of what's appearing to me? What's the true nature of this other person? Yeah. And you deconstruct them, and well, I can see their body. Well, what is their body? Well, it's just a collection of different parts of their body. What's a part of a body? Well, that's just a collection of other things. If you think of your hand, for example, as part of your body, but what's a hand? It's just some skin and bone and ligaments and muscles and so on. And what's bone? It's just, you keep deconstructing and deconstructing, you don't find anything. All you find is what you're looking for cannot be found. So if you're looking for the essence of another person that is out there, some objective reality, you think, I need to find the true nature of this thing. And all we find is unfindable. And this is called emptiness. Yeah? So if the object that's appearing to us is empty of existing from its own side, because there's nothing there to be found, we have to realize that it is not other than an appearance to our own mind. Yeah? So what is appearing to us, because we've taken rebirth into samsara, what is appearing to us is the nature of suffering. So, and the reason for that is that our mind itself is creating this experience of suffering. It's very difficult to understand this, but it challenges, if you understand this, then it challenges how we normally respond. It challenges to ask ourselves, what is a sense of loss and what is a sense of disappointment? So, essentially, disappointment is just an unpleasant feeling that results from our expectations or hopes not being fulfilled. Yeah? Our expectations or hopes not being fulfilled. So whose expectations is it? It's our expectations. So what if we had no expectations? We wouldn't have disappointment. We wouldn't have, if we didn't have this notion of ownership, or possession, we wouldn't have a sense of loss either. And yet we do. Why do we have this sense of ownership or sense of expectation? I think the main reason that we do is because we're looking in the wrong place for our peace and our happiness. We're looking externally. Yeah? Not within our own mind, but within what appears as out there. And essentially what is appearing out there is we have created it ourselves by our own past actions. It's called karma. So if we have a pleasant, joyful world that's appearing to us like Liverpool, then it's because we have engaged in positive, beneficial, virtuous actions in the past. Virtue is the cause of happiness. Virtuous actions create happiness. And so if we experience happiness in this lifetime, it's because we have engaged in virtuous actions in the past. But if our environment is unpleasant, then again it's because of our past non-virtuous actions. And if our relationships go sour again, then it's because we've engaged in non-virtuous actions, and we've taken rebirth into this state of suffering. So, Buddha is saying there's particular types, particular attributes of samsara which everyone experiences. Wrong place. Okay. In this text, joyful path of good fortune. It says joyful path. It's not. Buddha's first teaching is on the Four Noble Truths. And the first noble truth is no sufferings. And so you think, well, I'm so familiar with suffering, I don't want to know more sufferings. But what he's saying is, understand your condition right now and understand the causes of that condition, because then it doesn't have to be like that. What he's saying is you can turn your mind to seek happiness within your own heart, and then you will find freedom from suffering. So this is a section here called Meditation on True Sufferings. The general sufferings of samsara. There are many sufferings that are experienced in common by all beings in samsara. So this applies to us. First of all is uncertainty. Our whole world is uncertain. It's changing moment by moment. But we have no idea what the future change will become. Everything is uncertain. So if you think about impermanence, we can think about, we understand gross impermanence, how things have changed over the last 50 years, for example. Liverpool is not the same as it was 50 years ago. And we ourselves are not the same as we were 20, 30 years ago. We understand that. Yeah. But what we fail to understand is subtle impermanence. Subtle impermanence refers to the situation where we're changing moment by moment by moment. We don't remain even for one moment. We don't remain even for one moment. We change from one moment to the next. So that the person who's sitting there, who's sitting in your seat, when you're thinking, this is my seat, this is who I am, is not the same person that came into this room, half an hour ago. You have changed. Your mind has changed, your body has changed. And that's all you are, just a mind and a body. So you've changed. But there's no certainty about the direction of change. And this process of change applies to everything in samsara. Even things that you think are unchanging, like this building. This building is changing moment by moment too. The external environment is changing moment by moment. You just got to look across the lake and you see the daffodils beginning to grow, and so on. And so the problem is that we have no control over the direction of change. So even if we have found a perfect situation for ourselves, perfect place to live, perfect relationships with other people, perfect restaurants to go and have food and so on, perfect cafes to have the best coffee and so on. Even if we found all that, it's going to change. Yeah. The second general suffering of samsara is we never find satisfaction. We have no satisfaction. Anything that gives you permanent happiness and peace? Got anything in your life that does that? If you do, then you're not in samsara. If you found the perfect thing, you're no longer in samsara. I used to carry around a check for, when I was in the States, it was for $1 million that I'd be prepared to give to anybody. I didn't have $1 million in the bank, but I'd be prepared to give it to anybody if they could show me something that was a true source of happiness. In samsara, there is no true source of happiness in samsara. And yet we strive for many different things. We strive for things like wealth. Think, if I have more wealth, I'll be happy. If I avoid losing the wealth I've already accumulated, then I'll be happy. If I have a good reputation, I'll be happy. If I avoid having a bad reputation, I'll avoid suffering. If I'm respected, I'll be happy. If I'm not respected, I'll be unhappy. And so on. So we're constantly looking for external things like pleasure. If I have pleasurable feelings, nice coffee, nice environments, nice ambience in the places I go to and so on, then I'll be happy. But none of these things are real sources of happiness. Imagine if you if you found your perfect cafe, yeah, and you really enjoyed when you've been there. Imagine if you had to go there every day for the rest of your life. It would be a nightmare. Even your best friend, if you had to spend every day with them for the rest of your life, you'd be paying them to go on holiday. Give me a break. Yeah. From this, we come to realize there's nothing there that can give us lasting peace and happiness. Because happiness and its opposite, suffering, are merely states of mind. So when there is uncertainty in our life, if we're failing to find satisfaction, if everything is changing moment by moment, one of the last ones is that we have to leave our body over and over again. We have to take rebirth over and over again. We have to lose status over and over again, and we have no companionship. We come into this life alone, and we exit this life alone. I think part of the reason why we're so fixated on what's happening in this lifetime, because we forget about what it is we really are. We're just an idea of a self, a me, an I, that we create independence upon the appearance of our body and the appearance of our mind. The definition of a person is a self or an I imputed. This word imputed is really important. It means that we create the idea. We create the concept with our own mind. So our self or our I, who we are, is imputed upon our body and mind. We create the idea of ourself. And then we think, having created that idea of ourself, we think, oh, it really exists. This is just who I am. You ever use that phrase? It's just who I am. It's just me. Yeah. And so we cling to this idea of ourselves. And we cling to the idea of other people's selves. We cling to the idea that everything that's appearing in my life is actually existent. Yeah. And we forget that it's transient. We forget it's changing moment by moment. We forget it doesn't last for a moment. We forget about the underlying process of what it is like to be in samsara, experiencing the sufferings of birth, aging, sickness, and death, the 4 rivers of suffering, and rebirth again, all over again. And the reason we are not really, reason we really seeking happiness from external things is that we're so focused on this life alone. The nature of who we think we are and the nature of who we think other people are. We fail to have the wisdom that everything is simply an appearance to mind. If we were to understand this, that even the things that we grasp at have no particular meaning or essence other than the meaning that we ourselves give to them, is we are creating meaning for ourselves all the time. You know, you just have to think that, we create a meaning of one other person or one situation, and we think this person is wonderful. And then somebody else will create a different meaning for that person or situation. And so the way the person or the situation exists is simply dependent upon our own mind, or what meaning we're creating for whatever's appearing to us. So when we're experiencing a sense of loss and disappointment, what we normally do, if we're just focused on this life alone, is to experience this loss or disappointment as suffering. And it becomes difficult to get over. So, but if we come to realize, well, this is just a part of me taking rebirth in samsara, it is natural that I will be facing senses of loss and disappointment throughout my life. it's just natural. You can't think of any other living being who's not experiencing the same things. Everyone is experiencing senses of loss and disappointment. Except people like my spiritual guide, Geshe Kelsang Gyatso. And to tell you a story, some years ago, in maybe about the early 1990s, there was a very active teacher in Germany. She had many different, she was the kind of national spiritual director of Germany. And she had many, she was establishing many different centers throughout Germany. And then NK, our tradition, bought this big castle. She wanted to have this castle for a main center in Germany. So they put up money and they bought the castle. And she signed the deeds for this purchase. So for a little while she was functioning in the castle, and then she was attracted to go with a different tradition. And she thought, well, I'll just take the castle with me. And so this is a big loss in Germany. It's like she was going to take all the centers that she had developed and grown throughout Germany and go with a different tradition, with a different spiritual guide. So you can imagine, if we were the general spiritual director of our tradition, with the main teacher in our in this tradition, when we heard this would be awful. There would be a great sense of loss and disappointment. But what did Venerable Geshe do? He burst out laughing. And the story is that he jumped on his bed and just started laughing and pulled his robes over his head. And he said, "Oh, I must have been a bad boy." So for him, because he has no attachment, it's not a sense of loss. It's not a disappointment. It's just the natural relationship of being in samsara. What he's saying, I must have been a bad boy. I created this. I created this appearance. And this is what's happening. So that's what we're like. We're creating all our experiences. Day by day. Even the good ones and the bad ones and the neutral ones. We're creating them day by day. And it's because we have attachment to the appearances that we have created, and we don't like them to change, and we think, oh, now I've got everything set up, and I have these nice feelings, and I don't want it to change. So when it does change, because we have no control over it, then we experience a sense of loss and disappointment. So what's the solution then? What's the solution to all this? Well, there's many different types of solutions, a whole host of them. But it all boils down to get out of samsara. That's what Buddhist teachings are all about. Change your mind, purify your mind, so you never again create the cause of suffering. The appearances that you create, life after life after life, the appearances that you create are the cause of joy and happiness. You know, can you say that for this lifetime? I've created appearances of only to experience joy and happiness in this lifetime. I don't think so. Even living in a Dharma center, it's not like that. There's always a continuous sense of loss and disappointment. So how should we relate to the things that appear in our life? If we can relate to them as simply appearances that have arising, that are impermanent, because samsara itself is changing and samsara is uncertain, then things can appear in your life and you enjoy them while they're there. But then we try not to become attached to them, and then knowing that at some point they will stop appearing, because everything is impermanent. And so if they stop appearing, if they in essence go out of your life, then that's okay as well. Because you don't have that mind of attachment. You haven't latched on to this cafe or this environment as your real source of happiness. You know, suddenly there's, I don't know, great earthquakes around, and great fires, great floods, and so on. And these things happen, and they sweep away our environment, everything that we hold dear. And yet we could remain peaceful and happy if we weren't attached to them. It's our attachment that's the problem, that creates this experience, this of suffering, of a sense of loss and a sense of disappointment. So, I mean, these disappointments, you know, it's because we have expectations that things are going to be okay. And when they turn out not to be okay, then we experience this as suffering. Yeah? If we had no expectations, we'd never be disappointed. So the experience of disappointment is the real cause of it. It's not what's happening, what's appearing or not appearing in our life. It's our expectation of it. You know, this is the essence of this advice, just to live in the moment. Yeah. And be patient and accepting of everything that's changing. And so if we focus on our experience of suffering, our sense of loss and our sense of disappointment, then we're not really focusing on what's appearing in our life at the moment. So because we're focusing our mind on what was before, or what failed to come. And instead, we could be appreciating what we have right now, in this very moment. Yeah. We could be developing a sense of gratitude towards what we have had, what we still have. And so if we can overcome these experiences of loss and disappointment, then it opens up our mind to be able to, I hesitate to say live now, or live in the moment, but to appreciate the moment, to find joy and happiness and peace in this very moment, whatever is happening right now, whoever is appearing right now, whatever is appearing to you right now. Because in a sense, everyone is beautiful. Everyone is amazing. Every situation you find yourself in is beautiful and amazing. Yeah? Just think of, if you just walk into the park, just look at the amazing the growth of these yellow daffodils, the trees. Look at the shape of the trees. It's just completely amazing. How these grown over many, many years, well over 100 years. These things have been growing. And it's the process of growth. We begin to focus on the process rather than just the end result. Yeah. So what is the process of our existence? Birth, aging, sickness, and death. So, take aging, take one of these, aging. Do we have a sense of loss and disappointment of our youth? Yeah. Often. One of the things that we tend to do is we keep recalling what it was like before. I know I certainly do. What I was doing when I was 10 years ago. And by fixating on that, of course I'll have a sense of loss and disappointment, because I can't do the things now that I used to do many years ago. But what I can't do is different. What I do is something different. There's this sense of underappreciation of what we can do in this very moment, of who we are. We keep comparing ourselves now with what we were in the past. It always seems like what we are now is somehow inferior. From what perspective are we inferior? We need to begin to appreciate the qualities that we do have. And there's a sense that as we age, we have accumulated experience and we have a deeper understanding and knowledge of the sufferings of samsara. So, and we can develop a sense of gratitude. Thank goodness I have met Buddha's teachings. Thank goodness I have met Geshe Kelsang Gyatso. Where would we be if we hadn't? Because what we're being presented with is a way out of loss and disappointment. A way to effectively change our mind so we do not experience loss and disappointment. And so in every moment we could be abiding in a state of peace and patience and contentment. This very powerful mind is contentment. So we're thinking, oh, I'm happy right now. I don't need anything more. Yeah. And then, of course, the world changes. And if we have a mind that's resilient, that's not attached to any particular moment, if we have a mind that's resilient, then it's like our mind is changing with what's appearing in our external world. So I'm happy right now and the world changes, the appearance of the world changes, and then I'm still happy in that moment. And so what we're living with is, moment by moment, we're staying in this with this mind of contentment, which is just permanent peace and happiness. And that's what's on offer. That's what Buddha is saying you can accomplish. So, well, let's meditate then. So again, bring your mind inwards, just to watch the rhythm of your breathing for a few moments. we can come to understand, as long as I remain in samsara, it is inevitable that will I experience loss and disappointment. Because staying in samsara, I have attachment to worldly concerns. I have attachment to the things that appear in my world. And because nothing remains for a moment in samsara, it is inevitable that things will change. Things will stop appearing to me. Situations, people will stop appearing to me. This is the natural state of samsara. And I have no control over the way in which samsara changes, moment by moment. So if I'm attached to particular appearances in samsara, it is natural I will experience loss, the suffering of loss, and the sufferings of disappointment. Recognizing this, I come to realize, if I really want to find permanent freedom, permanent peace, not have to experience loss and disappointment, I must free my mind from samsaric rebirth. I must free my mind from the causes of taking rebirth in samsara. I should practice only virtuous actions and avoid non-virtuous actions. And I should purify the negative potentials that remain in my mind, that keep me trapped in samsara, life after life. So I can use this experience of loss and disappointment as a reminder. I must free myself from samsara. So make the determination. I will use my daily experience of loss and disappointment to free myself from samsara. I shall come to realize it doesn't have to be like this. I can be different. bring your mind back to this determination. I must do whatever it takes to free myself from samsaric rebirth. So now you can begin to relax your concentration. And when you're ready, you can arise from meditation. In the next session, we'll deal with some temporary remedies that you can apply. Some of them are from a teacher's advice from the heart. Very beautiful piece of advice for daily living. Does anyone have any questions, comments you would like to have? So we're all agreed then, we're getting out of samsara. Yeah, well, to realize this is the nature of your suffering. And it doesn't have to be like that. And so, hating it, I mean, I think the hating itself is an aspect of suffering. It's creating more suffering.
But if you think it's nice,
Oh, yeah.
because sometimes it is nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because we've created nice appearances.
Yeah. So there has to be that kind of strong feeling, I think,
Yeah.
that it's not really nice.
Well, I don't know. I think you can accept things that are nice. And you can enjoy them. It's like the joyful path. It's not the hateful path. And you know, just accept that there is enjoyment. Accept high positions and so on. But don't think of it as, your source of happiness. A high position, for example, is like an opportunity to benefit other people more. Yeah. And so, but we just accept what's appearing without attachment. It's not the appearance itself that's the problem, it's our attachment to it. Thinking, oh, I want this to be, always to be like this, which is mistaken. Yeah. So, the word that is normally used is renunciation. I renounce worldly concerns. I might renounce my attachment to worldly concerns, and instead I'm going to look within my own mind and practice becoming more loving and compassionate. Yeah. 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 But we can have an aversion to the realization that we're in samsara in order to develop the mind renunciation to get out. Yeah, but not hatred. Yeah. Any other question? Okay, we'll have a break. you have a nice coffee? Hmm? Good. So we'll begin with a brief meditation. Imagine that every time you're breathing out, you're breathing away all your negative thoughts and feelings, all your sense of loss and disappointment in the form of black smoke. And as you're breathing in, imagine you're breathing in all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, inspiring thoughts and energy in the form of white light. So you're freeing yourself from all this negative mental energy and replacing it with this positive, inspiring mental and physical energy. Just by breathing. So just take another 4 breaths. Breathe away the last of any remaining black smoke, any remaining negative thoughts and feelings. And feel your whole mind is filled with positive energy and inspiration. And that inspiration brings to mind a thought. I want to become just like you. Just like all those who have gone before. The awakened ones and those aspiring to become awakened ones. So with that thought, I want to become just like you. You can begin to relax your concentration. And when you're ready, you can arise from meditation. So, once we begin to realize that we're in what's called samsara, this state of uncontrolled suffering and uncontrolled rebirth, life after life, and we begin to realize that the experience of suffering is just our norm. This is our norm, our experience of suffering. But what we can do, so much of Buddha's teaching is giving us some mental tools that we can use to change our experience of suffering into something else, into something that is more positive and more conducive to taking us out of samsara and being able to experience the permanent peace and happiness that we are all longing for. So it's called transforming adverse conditions into the path. So the path is the process of mental training. It's what we're doing now, trying to improve our mind. And in the process will take us out of samsara. And it's not that we go anywhere. There's no place, there's no geographical location or either on earth or anywhere else that is called samsara. It's just the nature of your own mental experience. Yeah. So in the process of changing our mind, then we're taking ourselves out of samsara, out of the experience of samsara. So, as I said earlier, it's our mind that's creating meaning for everything that appears to us. And by changing our mind, we change the meaning of things. So we can change our experience from suffering to non-suffering, to enjoyment, to peace, to happiness. Yeah? Because there is no inherently existent external phenomena. Everything is dependent upon our mind. We change our mind, we change the object. No? Yes. You can nod, it's all right. Thank you. I like it when people nod. So, and you can understand, because we've done this countless times before. Sometimes we've had friends, and then just when our mind changes, they become our enemy. And sometimes we have enemies, and our mind changes, they become our friend. There's no enemy or friend out there. They're just appearance. So, thinking about that, there's a really nice quotation from Shantideva. And essentially it's how we can use suffering, our experience of suffering. Whenever I experience, this is from the chapter on relying upon patience. Whenever I experience hardship, I should fight my delusions, such as anger. Whenever I experience physical pain, I should wisdom to maintain a pure and peaceful mind. To those who disregard all suffering, to destroy the foes of anger and so forth, are the true conquerors worthy of the name hero. Other so-called heroes merely slay corpses. And then the next verse is so profound. Moreover, suffering has many good qualities. Through experiencing it, we can dispel pride, develop compassion for those trapped in samsara, abandon non-virtue, and delight in virtue. So if we dispel pride, it means that we open up our mind to be able to learn from anyone and everyone. We stop our feeling of needing to look down on other people who we feel do not have the same good qualities that we feel that we have. You know, this is a big part of our problem, is to think, oh, I've got such good qualities, I'm such an amazing person, that, you know, why should I experience problems and suffering? Why should I not be surrounded by amazing people who just fulfill my wishes all the time? And so, part of the reason why we get disappointed with experience disappointment is we think that the people who are appearing in our world should be doing particular things. Yeah. If they agree to turn up on time, then they need to turn up on time. And if they don't, then they're disappointing. Yeah. And so the disappointment is in relation to what's happening to the people around us. And the thing is, other living beings, or the appearance of other living beings, is disappointing. Always disappointing. There's no one who can appear to your mind that is never going to disappoint you. Yeah. And particularly the people you're most familiar with, the people you encounter most frequently, they are often the most disappointing. And how do we get to that state? Because we have some image of how they should be. This terrible word, should. It's very destructive. This is how they should be. And it's often different from how they actually are. So, whose fault is it? Who's the fault? Is it the disappointing person? Or is it our fault for having the expectation that we should have created a pure world? We should be surrounded by pure living beings who are never late, who always appear and turn up on time, and always do the things they should be doing. And essentially it's our fault. The fault of our past person who engaging in some negativity ourselves when we didn't turn up on time, when we were irritating, when we failed to produce the goods, what we committed to and so on. And so if we come to realize this, then we can abide in a state of peace, no matter what is happening. So no matter if nobody turns up on time, if nobody turns up at all, we're still peaceful and happy. So you can imagine if the teacher comes in here and there's nobody here. Are you going to be disappointed? Or are you going to think, oh great, now I can go for a walk in the park. So I can keep a happy mind by doing something, by focusing my mind on what the current situation is. There's no one here. Why should I be disappointed? So, moreover, suffering has many good qualities. Through experiencing it, we can dispel pride, develop compassion for those trapped in samsara. So, we can develop compassion for all the people who said they would turn up on time and they don't. So instead of getting irritated with other people, the correct response, the more virtuous response that's going to protect us from always experiencing people who don't turn up on time in all our future lives, is to have compassion, to have love and compassion. Yeah. Because everybody is in samsara. Everybody is experiencing problems and difficulties, moment by moment. It's not just us. We tend to focus, I think it's just, I'm the only one in samsara. Everybody else is just my toys or my pawns in my own chess game, you know. We are part of somebody else's chess game as well. And so, in many circumstances, we're the ones who create disappointment. We create disappointment for other people. Do we ever think about that? So, and develop compassion for those trapped in samsara. And we abandon non-virtue and delight in virtue, understanding the real cause of our experience of having a suffering experience when particular situations don't appear, our expectations are not fulfilled, and the things we want don't appear. And then we experience that as suffering. And it's a reminder that we need to practice virtue. Yeah? We need to clean up our act and follow a spiritual path, follow a spiritual journey. So often a lot of our disappointment is coming from our relationships with other people. And part of our problem is we find other people so faulty. Well, in this great scholar and teacher, Atisha, who reintroduced Buddhism into Tibet in the early 11th century. And he'd been there for 2 years, and he was about to return back home to India, and they begged him to just give one last teaching. And so this teaching is known as Advice from the Heart of Atisha. And it's 46 pieces of advice that we can try to practice in our daily life. So I recommend everyone get hold of a copy of Atisha's advice. It's part of 2 scriptures. It's one of 2 scriptures called the Kadampa Way of Life. And you'll find it in general at the back of this text, the new 8 Steps to Happiness, also at the back of How to Transform Your Life. If you have either of those texts, and one of them, How to Transform Your Life, you can have it as a digital version for free. And you'll find this as an appendix at the back. Have no hatred for enemies and no attachment for friends. Do not be jealous of others' good qualities, but out of admiration adopt them yourself. And then these next 2 are very profound. do not look for faults in others, but look for faults in yourself and purge them like bad blood. So, do we have a tendency to look for faults in other people? Well, yeah, it's really surprising how often that we just look at someone and say, "Oh, look at their hair, you know. Look at the look at the way they're dressed." I'm kind of doing this all the time, and it's just so ridiculous. We never think anybody's looking at us and say, "Oh, look at them," you know. But look at our own faults. Because if we never do that, we're never going to improve, we're never going to change. Look at our own faults. Just sit down and ask yourself, what are my faults? One of them is seeing faults in others. You know, if Venerable Geshe-la walked in here right now, he wouldn't be thinking, "Oh, look at the way they're dressed." He'd be thinking, "Oh, what wonderful people, all striving to attain enlightenment. Let me get to know them. What a delight." He just sees people at one stage in the process of attaining enlightenment. And the thing is, every living being has the same potential. So all it is, that we're just all at different stages in our process. And no one is any worse or better than anybody else. Because the only thing that's permanent about us is our potential to attain enlightenment. And in that sense, we're no better or worse than any insect or animal or squirrel or dog or cat. Because we all have that same potential. Yeah. So, in essence, living beings have no faults. It's one of the big, in the chapter on enhancing, cherishing love, enhancing our love for other living beings, we come to realize that living beings have no faults. And yet we perceive faults in other people. And just by the very process of perceiving faults in the appearing people in our life, then we experience disappointment. Yeah. And then when they don't do what we want them to do, and they appear in our life, and we're so happy, and then they go out of our life and we're so unhappy, we experience a sense of loss. And we blame them. Yeah. Look what you did to me. You made me feel bad. Yeah. Anyway, if we realize they're nothing other than appearance, and we create the conditions for them to appear in the first place, but we also create conditions for them to go out of appearance in the second place. And so it's just a natural process. It's just going on. It's just the flow of life. It's going on all the time. And yet we get so hung up on grasping at one particular aspect of it. It's like if you think of a movie, it's just a stream of particular images, particular frames, just a stream of frames. And so one frame appears to us that looks delightful, so we grasp onto that and hope it's not going to change. We never think about the end point of the movie. Yeah. If the things you desire do not come, It is due to karma created long ago. Therefore, keep a happy and relaxed mind. So we have expectations and particular desires of how the world should be, and it doesn't happen. Yeah. I have a desire for a red Ferrari, but it never comes, because I haven't created the causes for it to come. Thank goodness. Since all the happiness and suffering of this life arise from previous actions, do not blame others. So the suffering of this, the happiness and suffering of this life arise from previous actions. So when we're experiencing loss and disappointment, do not blame others. Because if we're experiencing suffering from some particular set of appearances, it comes from our own previous actions. So do not blame others. Stop blaming others. In the previous one, stop looking for faults in other living beings. As soon as you find yourself thinking of a fault, move your mind away. Move it to something else. In particular, one of the best things we can do is to move our mind to an image of an already awakened one, a Buddha. It'd be good if you can carry around an image of Geshe Kelsang or an image of Buddha Shakyamuni. So you have one in your pocket as soon as you feel you're beginning to find fault in other people, whip out the image. And your mind will immediately be pacified, because the image is the nature of peace and happiness. And so just by looking at the image, your mind is being filled with the nature of peace and happiness. But if you fill your mind with the critical, negative thoughts, then you're creating the cause of suffering. Yeah. I mean, you think that's a joke, but I'm quite serious. If you can have an image, or if you're skilled enough, you can just switch your mind to an image, if you have it imprinted in your mental continuum. You remain in samsara through the power of laziness. Therefore, ignite the fire of the effort of application. So once we realize that we have experience of loss or disappointment, we experience the suffering of this, and so often we're carrying it around for ages. You know, we can think, oh, someone we had a relationship with 20 years ago and disappointed us then, and we carry that disappointment for year after year after year, and never seems to go away. And what a shame, because that person doesn't exist anymore. And yet whenever we think of them, then we still have that unpleasant experience of disappointment. So we can take that disappointment as an incentive to change our mind. The more we begin to understand Buddha's teachings, the more we begin to understand the nature of samsara, how it's simply appearances to our own mind, we can begin to use any suffering of disappointment or loss as a reminder that we're still in samsara, and B, that we need to apply effort to get out. We need to apply some effort in meditation, in contemplating Buddhist teachings, in studying Buddhist teachings, in order that we can change our mind. Our mind is not going to change on its own. No one's going to come along with a magic wand and say, there, you're free from disappointment and loss. We've got to do the work ourselves. So ignite the fire of the effort of application. Friends, this is Atisha speaking. Friends, there is no happiness in this swamp of samsara, so move to the firm ground of liberation. No happiness in samsara. I mean, what this means is that, of course, we can have periods of enjoyment. We can have enjoyment of chocolate and ice cream and sunshine and walks around the park and conversation with friends and so on. And those can be enjoyable, of course. But it's not real happiness. It's not real happiness because eventually it would turn to problems and suffering. If you have to have ice cream for the rest of your life, it would be torture. If you have to have a never-ending conversation with the same person, it would be torture. So something that is real happiness never turns to suffering. And something that is real happiness is the cause of happiness for everyone. And there's only one thing that is like that, and that's the mind of liberation. The mind that frees, you take the trouble to free your own mind from the causes of suffering by following Buddhist teachings. That will by following a path of mental training that will take you out of suffering. I'm not saying you can't stop enjoying particular situations that you find yourself in that arise because you've created the cause of them to arise. Of course you can, it's good that we have enjoyments. Venerable Geshe-la has said many times, we are desire realm beings, and so we need desire realm enjoyments. Yeah. But we can use that. We can use that to further improve our mind, to realize it's not real. Your Buddha talked about manifest suffering, but he also talked about changing suffering, which is the way in which even the things that we enjoy eventually turn to suffering. Even the things that give us pleasure. The pleasure is only transitory, temporary. And so if we're attached to these transitory pleasures, we're missing out. We're always going to be disappointed. We're always going to be experiencing loss. But also we're missing out on the real causes of happiness, the real happiness that we could be experiencing with minds of love and compassion and bodhicitta and correct view of emptiness. So we don't need to miss out. Being under the influence of wrong views, we're all under the influence of wrong views. The particular one that is the most difficult is that samsara is the source of happiness. We all think that we can find happiness in samsara if we try hard enough. And so if we find something that's disappointing, well, we're not looking hard enough. We've just go on to the next one. Discard that one, go on to the next one. And don't we do that with relationships? No? Oh, just... I thought it was just... I'm glad to hear it's not just me then. And so we continue... we have a continuous search process, looking for the next best thing externally. But that search is bound to failure. Yeah. Never. The only thing that's never going to be disappointing is the experience of happiness and peace we create within our own mind. So, I think one of the things that we need to be able to do is ask ourselves, what is it I'm really doing with my precious human life? What is it I'm really doing? Am I engaging in just this process of accumulation or external improvement? Because if we find that's what we're doing, then we're always going to experience loss and disappointment. Or am I trying to become a better person? Am I trying to become more loving, more kind and more considerate, and developing an understanding? And not just an intellectual understanding, but a deep realization of the nature of samsara and our existence in it. Because that's what's going to be able to lead us to experience freedom from suffering, freedom from loss, freedom from disappointment, and be able to enjoy real peace and happiness and contentment all the time. So maybe we need some reassessment of our core values, not thinking that my career is a real source of happiness, my wealth is a real source of happiness, my friendships are a real source of happiness, the number of people I have on my Facebook page is a real source of happiness, and so on. None of these things are. But then, just look within. Am I seeking to become more loving and kind and considerate and compassionate? Am I really doing that? So if we are engaging in this internal examination, we can begin to see what's driving our attachment to worldly concerns. Are we attached to reputation, to wealth, to respect, to pleasure, to... what's the other one? Wealth and respect. Resources and wealth. Wealth and respect. Praise, yes. Am I pursuing things so I can be praised? Am I telling the world, about my great achievements? So people will praise me. Aren't you amazing? Because if that's what we're doing, we'd be so disappointed when people, I've just told you this amazing thing that I've done and you're not praising me. And so we begin, if our core values are to do with becoming more loving and kind and considerate and using our life to benefit other people, then all those things will begin to fall away. And as they fall away, then our sense of loss and disappointment is diminishing as well. And so we're enabled to reduce our expectations, because we're not beginning to expect anything from what appears in our external world. We're beginning to expect more from ourselves in our internal world. You know, if we're actually putting in the effort, then we can be confident that we will be creating the results that we long for. Yeah. There's a number of things that we can be confident about. We can be confident in our practice of Dharma. That if I practice Dharma, I will get good results. If I practice. We can be confident in our ability to overcome our delusions, our attachment particularly to samsara. I can overcome this. I can have this confidence because Buddha has said so. Because Geshe Kelsang has said so. So, but with that confidence, you know, then we encouraging ourselves to really strive to put in the effort to improve our mind. Also, we can strive to practice contentment, thinking, I'm happy right now. You know, Geshe-la has said we need to do 4 things for a productive and useful life. We need to eat food that sustains our body. We need to exercise. So we'll go out for a run in the park. We need to exercise. We need to rest. And we need to keep a happy mind. So the first 3 are to do with, you know, the nature of our physical being. But the 4th one is keeping a happy mind. So we can be confident that if we're training our mind in the teachings of Buddha, putting Buddha's teachings into practice, then we're enabling ourselves to be able to keep a happy mind. There is no other way. None of the things that we experience in samsara, it's always disappointing. It's always creating a sense of loss because it's transitory. So when things are going wrong in your life, we're not attached. We're saying, oh, this is just because I'm in samsara. My mind is not completely pure yet. And so it's a wake-up call to further improve my mind so I can get free of samsara. And focus, one of the pieces of advice is focus on what we can do now. So when someone is, you know, let's say someone's coming to your best friend's coming to you and saying, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to leave you. And I'm going off with the neighbor next door. You can either burst into tears or you can say, how wonderful. Yeah? Let me help you, let me pay your airfare, and so on. So, each event that occurs in your life is an opportunity for growth, for becoming more loving, more compassionate, more considerate for other people's suffering. And in process we become more adaptable, more resilient, and more able to deal with whatever difficulties are going to appear in our life. Sometimes we just find ourselves alone, and that can be fine, because it creates opportunities that would not occur if we were in a close relationship with other people. Also, training our mind is necessarily done alone. We have to train our own mind. We can't get anyone else to train our mind. Sometimes, if in a relationship, then the best type of relationship is one that enables us to grow spiritually, to find the real sources of happiness and freedom from samsara. If we have two people helping each other to accomplish that, then that would be a great relationship. Practicing contentment, reducing expectations, becoming more adaptable, able to accept change, practicing patience, finding a deeper appreciation for the present and the relationships that enrich our lives. So naturally things are changing, things are coming into appearance, and then things are going out of appearance. So if we're not attached to what the future may bring, what we'd like the future to bring, or we're not attached to what happened in the past, what has now gone and what has passed out of our appearances, then we're more able to appreciate what is going on now. As we're more able to be more loving and compassionate to whoever is appearing in our life right now. But if we're attached to what's gone before, and that in essence no longer exists, or if we're attached to the appearance of something that is yet to come, which doesn't exist yet, then in a sense, we're not really having compassion for anything that is in front of us. We're using up our time and energy for things that don't exist. Whereas what is appearing in front of our nose right now, if we're able to focus on that, then this is real, this is what's appearing in our moment. So, whoever is appearing to us right now is in essence all that's important in this moment. So if we can strive to find meaning in whatever is appearing, then our own life is becoming meaningful. We're creating that meaning within our own mind for ourselves. And what studying Buddha's teachings and putting them into practice is enabling us to do is to create better meanings for what's appearing in front of us. So if we're doing that moment by moment, day by day, month by month, year by year, then in essence we're creating a life of great meaning. If we're just constantly dwelling in the past, just trying to recall something that happened in the past, or blaming something in the past for our suffering minds now, or wishing for something in the past to reappear again, then we're wasting our time. Past is gone, doesn't exist anymore. So, another thing we can do is to practice gratitude. Gratitude is a mind that is realizing that our happiness is not just created by ourselves. Part of our enjoyment and meaning is arising from something or someone else. So who can we have gratitude towards? Our family, our parents? Because without our parents we wouldn't exist. Friends who lead us in correct directions, but particularly, most of all, our spiritual guide, who's leading us in correct directions, leading us to become the best we can be. So we can have, in essence, many spiritual guides. The great scholar Atisha had many formal spiritual guides. But also we can think anyone, perhaps your parents, your aunts, your uncle, giving you good advice that was leading you in correct directions. In a sense, they're guiding you to become the best you can be. So we can express gratitude towards that. We can express gratitude towards our previous self, because if we have anything that is creating peace and happiness for ourselves in this life, then it comes from our past actions. All the happiness that we experience comes from our past actions. So, this is not explicit. That what I'm going to say next is not explicit in Venerable Geshe-la's teachings, but it is implicit also, and it comes from the original Tilopa. There's 6 pieces of advice from Tilopa that is leading us to experience just permanent peace and happiness, great bliss and emptiness. First of all, don't recall. Don't think about the past. Past is gone. Don't try and imagine what the future might be like. Don't try and explain the present, what's happening right now. In other words, just accept. Patiently accept. Be content. Don't try to figure anything out. Don't try and develop a theory of everything, or explain why particular things are happening. Don't try to control. So don't try to create a particular set of outcomes. Instead, rest in a state of bliss and emptiness. But in order to achieve that final solution, you need to be able to train your mind. You need to come to the realization that we are in samsara right now. We need to develop the mind that wishes to become free, to develop mind for renunciation. And the wish to engage in putting effort into the practice of the means of becoming free of samsara. And beyond that, not just being able to free ourselves, but to be putting effort into the means to be able to help others to do the same. In other words, the way to overcome the experience of loss and disappointment is to create the wish and the power to be able to free others from their own experience of loss and disappointment. If we do that, then our life has become meaningful. In the process, there will be no more experience of loss and disappointment for ourselves. And in fact, this is the only way. There's no other way to become completely free from the experience of loss and disappointment. Because samsara, its very nature is loss and disappointment. So, I know it's a long journey. But we just start from where we are. And, Venerable Geshe has often said, enlightenment may well be very close. You just don't know. You keep striving each day to practice Buddha's teachings, and who knows? When you're climbing to the top of a mountain, usually the peak appears very suddenly. You're just going up step after step after step, and suddenly you realize, hey, I'm at the top. Well, and it's like following this path to enlightenment. You keep day by day, step by step, and then suddenly, wow, something's changed. I don't experience unhappiness anymore. I don't experience this loss. All I experience is great joy and happiness. So, let's meditate. So, there is an overarching solution to our experience of loss and disappointment. There are many temporary solutions, but there is one overarching solution. And that is to become free of samsara. Because as long as we remain in samsara with impure minds that create impure appearances, we will always experience a sense of loss and disappointment. So not only do we need to follow Buddha's instructions, put effort into practicing Buddha's instructions, particularly following the 3 higher trainings of moral discipline that provides a foundation so we stop engaging in non-virtuous actions. Concentration, where we take control over our mind, and so we direct it to developing minds of virtue. And wisdom that realizes the true nature of things, including ourself. How everything is simply appearance. Appearances that arise because of actions we engaged in. If we follow these instructions, we will take ourselves out of samsara. And then we come to realize that this is not enough. because there are so many others who are still experiencing a sense of loss and disappointment. All the people that we care for and close to, they continue to experience these feelings too. And so there is a sense in which, realizing they're still in samsara, we experience a sense of loss ourselves, because we want them to be free too. And so then we come to realize, I need to do whatever it takes to become just like my spiritual guide, just like all those enlightened beings who have gone before. Because until I do, I cannot really take all my friends and loved ones and even others I've never met. I cannot help them. And so till I do, there will be a sense of something missing. And so we make the determination not only to free ourselves from samsara, but to seek enlightenment, not only to find permanent peace and happiness ourselves, but only in that state will we be able to help others find that same state themselves. And in the process, we make our life truly meaningful. So we meditate on the determination, not only to free ourselves from samsara, but to accomplish the power to free every other living being from samsara and take them to the permanent happiness of full enlightenment. And you just think, this is what I will do. This is what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. I'm going to free myself from samsara and seek enlightenment for the benefit of all other living beings. This is what I will do. And just hold your mind on that determination for as long as you can. So now you can begin to relax your concentration, and when you're ready you can arise from meditation. Just like to read a couple of things for you. From Buddha's sayings. The end of collection is dispersion. The end of rising is falling. The end of meeting is parting. The end of birth is death. And in Friendly Letter, Nagarjuna says, always be content. If you practice contentment, even though you have no wealth, you are rich. I'll finish there. Thank you so much.